Alright, you filthy exiles. Welcome to another video. This is just like an update one. I went on Twitter and basically started looking at all the updates. If you're not on Twitter, I guess you won't see them unless you're checking the website and whatnot. But information about the new keystones and passives tree is starting to get drip fed to us, and obviously there's some big changes with the map. Anyway, let's get into the video. So the first change that we can see in the new league is, as far as the tree goes, is this notable large cluster jewel which gives you Overshock. This is basically on we're looking at our dodge chance nodes there. So essentially this is in the ranger area. Now this is a ballistic amount of bloody of shock if all of those nodes are 12% lightning. And we'll just do some numbers here. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 or 11 nodes. So 12 times 11, about 130% give or take additional lightning damage without the keystone node in there. So looking at about 150% lightning damage. One build comes to mind with this one, and it would be the auto bomber. I'll put a link to a really cool video in the description for the auto bomber build, but the auto bomber with this node would just be absolutely unstoppable. Anyway, this is the first one that I've seen. We've got a few more to come. So the next cluster is the Warcry Buff cluster, or the Cry Wolf cluster, which basically increases the buff effect of Warcries and also counts as having 10 additional nearby enemies. Now, the one skill that I can think of that this would actually be advantaged by would be Pride. And basically what Pride does is nearby enemies take an increasing amount of physical damage the longer they stay in the aura. Well, if you're constantly dropping Warcries, then that would raise your damage up to its peak damage under Pride all the time. You would be able to keep Pride up at its maximum buff state constantly as you're running around the map and hitting your Warcry. That's one such example where I could see that being an advantage. I'm still a little bit unsure of where you go further from there, what other builds you could use it on, but it's going to be very interesting and, well, really interesting to see what people do with this on fizz damage builds. So the next cluster is the Touch of Cruelty cluster. Pardon me. This is whereby Chaos skills have 10% increased chance to hinder enemies on hit, with a 30% reduction to their speed, and also enemies hindered take 10% increased Chaos damage. Now, this is sitting in a really interesting spot. It's actually sitting down near where the Templar is. Which means that potentially you could do, if you're running, for example, Ming's Heart or something like that, you could run physical to chaos conversion builds. So basically, you can turn a berserker that does only fizz damage and convert that damage into all chaos damage. This is basically given the option to run chaos-based melee builds, essentially, which in the past has not really been very viable. But it's a really interesting node. It's going to be, it's going to give way to some really interesting builds, I think, to do with physical damage and chaos damage. But I think Zerkers are gonna pop off this league with some of these nodes down in this part of the tree at least. So the last update that's come up on Twitter is actually the faster node, which looks fucking awesome, which I'll be trying to build towards with my Guardian. Essentially, it gives you increased flask charges gained and 20% increased movement speed while under no flask effect. So that is a passive 20% increase to movement speed. So if you're running speed builds, cast on crit assassins, anything like that, this cluster is sitting perfectly up there. You'll be getting, crazy ass additional movement speed as well as flask charges. So even if you're running dodge builds or you're running phasing or anything like that, this cluster is going to be absolutely mental. So I'm actually really keen. I'm probably going to end up using this node for my build this league, and I would dare say this is going to be used in pretty much every other build that's sitting up in this sort of cluster. And a couple of other minor ones. There's now 2 new div cards that they're showing. One is Council of Cats, so you get a Pharrell item, which is basically the cat armor, which is pretty rare and expensive. And then the Eldritch Decay, which is Uber Elder Fragments, which is pretty cool, which means it'll be more attainable to do Uber Elder in this next league coming from the looks. The next change is the new Interrogation Small Cluster Jewel, and I've just put up the Reddit details. So now you cannot ignite, chill, freeze, or shock, but critical strikes will inflict Scorch, Brittle, and Sapped. So obviously Scorch being an ailment with fire that causes the affected target to have up to 20% reduced elemental resistance for fire damage of the hit for 2 seconds. Brittle is going to be particularly awesome with cast on crit characters. So hits against brittle enemies have up to plus 10% added base critical strike chance based on the cold damage of the hit that inflicted this ailment for 2 seconds. Sap, again, if you're running an auto bomber build, Sap is going to be absolutely fucking insane as well, because this is going to debuff enemies with a 20% potential damage increase to lightning as well. So really cool jewel, and I'm assuming it's going to cost a dickload as well at the start of the league. Okay, so the final change to the that they've announced so far is changes to the Atlas of Worlds. So obviously mapping was a bit of an issue last league. It was let's call it candidly what it is, an absolute shit show last league. So now they're basically, to sort of summarize what is happening here, there is a progress bar once you unlock the first Awakener instance, so you'll still need to pull your maps at the start. I don't know how to get Watchstone guide, but I'll probably do a new guide for, I guess there'll be new players playing this league. So once the league starts, I'll do a guide and basically show people the best way to get Watchstones early up and rush it through. But essentially now there's this bar here, which goes next to your holding zone, which basically shows the progress of your map. So in this case there's a segment of 5, and I believe based on what it's saying up here it can go up to a maximum of 9 sections. I'm assuming as you unlock more Watchstones and the maps get harder. But basically this will give you a progress update progressively as you're unlocking the Conquerors. So that when it's in yellow, it's indicative of you having completed a map. Grey is where you are skipping that, or not skipping that, but you're progressing past that map, but there won't be any influence in that map. And then obviously the 3rd and the 5th that are currently blue are the areas that are the maps that haven't yet been completed in those map zones. So once you've completed those, or in 100%, then your Conqueror will spawn. And additionally to that, the Sextant crafting recipe, so 3-to-1 crafting recipe, is coming back. There's a minor reshuffle to the Atlas, and from here there are very minimal changes to the Awakener. Yeah, they're basically they're buffing up from here. They're buffing up in the enemy bonuses, or the enemy boss bonuses, in non-unique maps as you unlock your Awakener level, and that's probably going to be dealing with power creep, because I'm assuming this league there's going to be more power creep as there is every other league. But yeah, that's pretty much the biggest critical change is we're getting a progress bar in for tracking our maps. So this is going to be really useful actually, because like they said further up here, it is currently a very random scenario that requires you just to constantly bash maps until eventually it comes up. It's going to be nice to be able to actually track progress in this area when doing mapping. When we're not delving, because we do delving in this channel. Yeah. And yeah, so if this video helped you get your head around the changes, if you weren't previously aware of them in patch 3.10, yeah, like and sub. If you thought this video was shit, you got the choice to dislike, and until next time, bye.